This is Jane. Jane's got an online store and she's doing pretty good.
Crushing it.
But like every store owner, Jane wants an app.
I want an app.
You need an app.
I can't build an app.
But she could. With Tapcart, she was able to design and launch the perfect app for her brand without having to deal with her developer. Now Jane can spend more time on the things she loves, being creative, connecting with her customers, and collecting sweaters for her dog, Sadie. Hey, Sadie.
Watch this.
Tapcart enables Jane to send these interactive push notifications directly to her customers, getting them back in the app and making purchases. Back on top. So what's next?
Flash sale.
Updating her app is a breeze. Add new blocks, feature a sale, share new content from anywhere. Plus, Tapcart keeps her app up to date with the latest technology. So no more dealing with this guy. This is the future, Jane.
Yep, I'm the future.
Your brand, your products, your app. Tapcart.
The .xyz community is made up of celebrated artists and creative outlets, acclaimed entertainers and designers, award-winning professionals and industry leaders, game-changing communities and organizations, and forward-thinking businesses discovering tomorrow's next big breakthroughs. The word is out, and the world is spoken. .xyz is the domain for the next generation. Build a winning online presence with a domain that knows no bounds. Join the revolution. Get your .xyz today.
A stronger relationship with my customers means better business, but it's hard with just email and a website to have a human connection. So that's why I want to show you Videoask. Videoask is a new way to engage with people through interactive video conversations, like this one. You just record yourself like I did, then you share it as a link or embed it on your website. People can respond with video or audio, or you can give them options to choose from. For example, hi there, nice to meet you. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Tim.
Awesome. Now I can follow up with another pre-recorded question. What's your role?
I'm a product marketer.
When someone answers, their response goes straight to the Videoask inbox. And the audio is transcribed so you can search for it later.
I'm a product marketer.
And when I want to carry on the conversation, I can easily reply with a Videoask.
Hi, Tim. You can also start a follow-up Videoask with any of your respondents and keep the conversation going asynchronously.
You can use it to qualify leads, collect testimonials, for recruitment, and much more.
So that's Videoask. Want to try it out?
Welcome to StartupStarter Presents No Code Week Happy Hour, powered by Videoask by Typeform. My name is Lorel Scott, and I'm the co-founder and head of partnerships and platform at StartupStarter. We've had an amazing first week of No Code. We started off the week with a panel hosted by WeAreNoCode, and I've heard from Apps Without Code, Bubble, Adalo, Brand Factory, No Code Makers, and our event sponsor Tapform. Now, with so many great platforms out there, we want to invite you to share with us your ability or your idea, and give you the opportunity to have Doc Williams, founder of Brand Factory, start building your app or web-based app during week 2 of No Code Week. All you have to do is record a 30-second pitch of your idea, and we'll choose 3 idea makers to start building their app live. You can do this from your phone or your computer. Ready to get started? Let's go.
Let's go. Welcome back, everyone, to No Code Week 2. Everyone has stuck in there, and we are running high today. So we have a great panel of guests today. We have Softer, we have Typeform, Videoask, WeAreNoCode, we have Brand Factory back with us as well as we have my very own CEO and co-founder, Jose Barrera, to speak on the panel today as well. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for No Code Week, Tapcart.xyz, Beam Conferencing, you're looking at them live right now, as well as Parlay Me, our media brand partner. Again, welcome back. This week is filled with a lot of cool things going on. So we have founder stories, we have workshops, and we have a really cool VC panel to end the week of No Code. So stay tuned, check the event page, and without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and welcome these great people in. First up, I would like to welcome Nicolas Grenie from Typeform and Videoask. How's it going, Nicolas?
Hey.
What's going on? Welcome to
Great to be here.
Week. Yeah, welcome, man. Next, we'll welcome in Mariam Hakobyan, and she is the co-founder at Softer. I'm sorry, Nicolas. Nicolas is the advocate for development over at Typeform. Yes. And then Mariam, welcome in. You're on mute, but welcome. She is the co-founder of Softer. Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks a lot for the invite.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to have you here. Next, we have WeAreNoCode's very own Eddy Widerker.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. Then we have Doc Williams, Brand Factory.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you.
Welcome back, Doc. And then last but not least, we have Jose Barrera with StartupStarter.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, hey, everyone. How are you? Happy to be here.
Well, good. Thank you guys for joining and out of your busy days, right? So what I want to do is I kind of want to just kind of lay the land, right? What is no code? What's going on in the world of no code? How you guys are contributing to the no code industry and helping idea makers bring their brands to life. So what I want to do is I want to go around the room, just kind of give them an introduction of who you guys are, what you guys represent, and what your company represents as well. So whoever wants to take it away, let's shoot. Ladies first. Let's go with Mariam.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Lorel. So I'm Mariam. I'm one of the co-founders of Softer. I'm an engineer turned into entrepreneur. I have been coding myself for quite a long time and then decided that it's enough and then turned around starting to business on my own. So Softer is an easy-to-use platform allowing to build really powerful websites, web apps, and portals using Airtable as a backend. So people build different things on Softer, things like marketplaces, online communities, portals, online paid courses, and much more.
Yeah, Airtable. Everyone's using Airtable. A lot of people are integrating with Airtable, so this is great. And then also, Mariam will also have a founder story, so you guys can hear about her story later on in the week, as well as she will have her own workshop to show you how you can actually use Softer and connect it with your Airtable. So thank you very much again for joining us here. Next up, we'll go with Nicolas. Nicolas, tell us a little bit about what you're doing over at Typeform and Videoask.
Yeah, so I'm Nicolas. I'm a developer advocate, and my role is to really empower any developers that want to play with Typeform or Videoask. But if you're not familiar with Typeform or Videoask, we are really creative, giving you all the tools to create an interactive experience with your customers, either through forms where you ask questions and you retrieve data, that's Typeform, or through video using your face as an interface, and that's Videoask. That's the ad you showed just before. When I say I'm here to empower developers, I'm actually more here to empower hackers. And this is why we're into the no-code community as well, is anybody that comes around and try to hack things around our products, we're happy to support them. And we've seen people using, if I give you an example, we've seen people using Typeform to do a lead generation form, but also run a small e-commerce website, engage with their community regularly, do reviews, all kind of stuff.
Great. Yeah. And he'll also be hosting a networking session coming up tomorrow, as well as his partner in crime, Amy Carlson. She will be running a workshop. And then on Thursday, we'll have a Videoask presentation so you can learn how to use Videoask yourself. So again, Nicolas, thank you very much for being here. We're loving the work that you guys are doing out there to help us build these brands and the company. Yeah. So don't forget, you did see the video in the beginning, right before I came on. If you would like your app built out live or have the opportunity to have it built out live utilizing one of these no-code tools that we have displayed during No Code Week, make sure to do your video ask. We will drop the link into the chat for you. and we will send it out in your email. You also have it inside of your newsletter that went out today as well. With that, we'll welcome Doc Williams in, and Doc will be the one actually building out your web-based or app this week live with that opportunity as well. Doc, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me for this week. And it's great to be here. Just briefly, my name is Doc Williams, and I'm the founder of Brand Factory. And what we do here is trying to empower ones that might not have a technical background in utilizing these tools. So many times you're trying to build a product or build something for your business quickly, but there's so many tools out there. It almost is like, which one should I choose? Why should I choose it? So what I do is I just create content to make you money quicker. And whatever tool that happens to be, that's what I use. So we go from that every single week. So it spans from building a business with a marketplace, building apps for for local restaurants. It really just depends on what people are looking for, and that's what I do.
Yeah, so much education here, right? Tools and education all in one place. And then Eddy, talk to us a bit about WeAreNoCode and the different tools that you guys are using to help empower and educate these idea makers when it comes to utilizing all of these no-code tools out here.
Yeah, happy to talk about this. My name is Eddy. I'm the co-founder of WeAreNoCode, and the best way to understand what WeAreNoCode is, it's a mix between a product school where we focus on the best-in-class no-code tools such as Webflow, Bubble, Airtable, Tegromat, Zapier, and so on. And then also the other component is a startup accelerator, where we support you with the knowledge, the community, the perks, which we, by the way, have $300,000 of perks, and then also with the mentorship of a traditional accelerator program. Our goal is to empower non-technical founders to essentially make them career founders, where they essentially have the right tools, which mostly are no code, as well as the right methodology to succeed in building their startups.
Man, well said, well said. If you don't know WeAreNoCode, you check them out. We'll drop their information in here as well. And then last but not least, again, we have the CEO and co-founder of StartupStarter himself, Jose Barrera. Welcome, Jose.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. For us that don't know StartupStarter, we're an all-in-one solution for entrepreneurship, one-stop shop for all things you need to succeed. I'm a career consultant, salesman by trade, military background. I just always have an eye for logic, and just the idea that you couldn't go to one single place to get started was just a pain for us, for those that I try to help out along the ride, the companies that I advise. So we're trying to create that and do an emphasis on product rather than service. So part of that is bringing people like this, right, that can actually help everyone with no code and, really help anyone just get started. We're not just focused on the no code element, but that's a huge first step for a lot of people, for a lot of just business owners, not just startups. So really happy to have all of you guys join us here and to be with everyone here. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for being here. Listen, we can jump right into the conversation. There's so much to talk about here, so much feedback I want to get directly from you guys, and feel free to jump in. Don't talk over each other. You know how that goes. And yeah, we'll knock it out, have a good conversation. So one of the first questions that I wanted to ask is, what does no code mean to you guys, and what brought you guys to be a part of this movement individually to help these idea makers?
If no one wants to start, I'm happy to start. So for me, it was the first time I explored no code was in 2014, 2013, when the term no code never existed. And it was essentially just a means to an end. I needed to create a product, or wanted to create a product. And ultimately, as a non-technical founder, my hands were tied, right? So I was just like Googling of like, hey, are there any tools that allow me to enable X, right? And I think at that time in 2013, 14, 15, the no-code space looked totally different. There were maybe like 5 or 10 different no-code platforms that are somewhat okay. I think nowadays it's like, the variety is immense. And I think to put it simply, it was just like, finding better tools to accomplish, building software products online. That's what brought me to it. And I'm excited, that this ecosystem today is so rich in terms of new tools and in terms of new instructors and education. So I think it's a perfect time for that.
I can go ahead.
I come from a few startups that are being very high tech, and I wasn't the technical one, so trying to get anything done, or just the back and forth, it's been a pain in the butt. The last company I was at, the last startup I was at, it was just a failure from founders not being coachable, but also not being able to take action because of the limitations we had. None of us were coding, and we depended on people doing stuff for us. And then moving on, trying to start something else. And I remember I got a WordPress website, and then I tried to get a builder. And even that was so complex that I'm like, dude, there's gotta be something easier out there. And just with that, one thing led to the next. Typeform came second. And then it was just kind of seeing all these stuff that I wasn't starting a startup. I had a business, and I was helping companies start small businesses, and all these things were coming into play. I think when I found the term no code being used, it's that's what this is. That's what people are doing now. Mm-hmm. And from then on, I think it just exploded, right? And WeAreNoCode and all these guys have done amazing things, just seeing it take place. Some more for startups, I think things like Bubble that can be very complex, very rich, that you can really, go more geared towards product. But just for the large majority of people, being able to automate your business, that was just a huge thing. And that's how I was using it at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just excited to see what the future brings. I always thought Bill Gates always talking about, hey, you should teach kids to code in school. Now I'm I don't think that's the case anymore. I think if anything, the future is going to be all visual language. You're just simply going to drag and drop. So yeah, excited to see what comes next.
Nicolas?
Yeah, for me, I'll tell you probably the story that's the most common to every engineer or technical person in the world, where people come to you as oh, could you fix my printer? I'm a developer myself, but beside fixing printers, I also receive a lot of solicitation from my friends that had the best idea, the next social network, everything. They were always looking for developers. And I had to tell them I have no time for your idea, and I have no time to help you out, but you should learn how to code, or you should get yourself into this. And slowly the learn how to code was more, maybe there are some things you can automate. Maybe you don't need a database. Maybe you can use Airtable as your backend. Maybe you can start having a mobile app. This is probably closer to now, but in the past, it was consume the database, connect a few things through connectors like Zapier, and slowly you test the product, and eventually you find some engineers to continue. And I think I was really into this for empowering those entrepreneurs to get started, and not feel blocked that the first thing that they needed was a technical co-founder, an engineer, and eventually if they become successful, I will join them.
Mariam?
Yeah, so my journey, I'm also an engineer by background, and my journey hasn't been very traditional compared to lots of other people who got into no-code. Actually, until recently, I didn't even know what no-code is, that you can actually use no-code tools to build a website, just, because I could build it myself if I needed to. And the reason I got with my co-founder into building software in the first place was mainly because of our own frustration. I think Nicolas would understand me if I tell that in every other company we worked for and all of the engineers you ask, we just kept building the same things over and over, all of the same things that you mostly see now in the no-code tools being offered, already pre-built. Those things you have to build as an engineer. And as an engineer, you're usually very lazy and you want to automate things and you want to find easier ways or automate repetitive tasks. So we thought, why not have a platform where all of these repetitive components like authentication, payments, messaging, all of this is offered as building blocks. And then on top, companies or individuals can build their own businesses, kind of extending that. And then we also were really very much into this startup scene. And every other meetup we went to, we basically were asked, for someone to become their technical co-founder, because there are millions of people having ideas, wanting to start businesses, but they just can't, right? Either they need money, or they need someone to help them build it. So we just saw also firsthand really the scarcity of engineering talent, and we really wanted to start empowering those people to be able to build businesses, to build products and start their own businesses instead of just being a user.
Cool. Now, Doc, like you're big on the education of these different tools yourself. So tell us a little bit about how you came about in no code and how you're empowering these different people and kind of where your transformation came in that space.
Yeah, I mean, I think it started around 2010, 2011 when I had my first gym. And that was just because I needed to figure out marketing and I needed to figure out a website and all these things. And that was when I stumbled upon like WordPress, and my friend's like, yeah, it'll be fine. Like you just log in. It's not that big of a deal. I was just so confused how to use it. And then he's like, hey, there's this guy named like Noah Kagan. He's starting this company called like AppSumo or something like that. Maybe you should talk to him. He's got some stuff. And at the time, there were so many more expensive like CRMs and stuff like that. If everyone remembers like how expensive HubSpot was at the time, and just it was a hot mess in Salesforce, I just couldn't afford it. So when I found AppSumo, that wasn't called no code. It was just, I just knew it was just platforms I could use that were cheap that I could buy for LTDs, or lifetime deals. So I used to just Frankenstein together like all of my sites and all of these opt-ins and things like that. And then when doing that for my business, for the gym, I ended up on a reality show. It was a failed Arnold Schwarzenegger reality show. And while I was there, the CFO of On It was there, and they asked me to start writing for them. And one thing led to another. Then I was around a lot of fitness people. And if you know anything, even WordPress, people are like, I need you as your CTO. And so like, it's just like one step above anyone else, but I was the most technical person. So ended up at a couple different startups, ended up at a startup where it was a mixture of CrossFit and the UFC, where it would be head-to-head workouts, and they needed a live streaming platform. This was 2014, 2015, and just hacking it together to live stream with OBS and building a platform and all this stuff. And then afterwards, I was just hooked. So people would just ask me like, how would I do this? And then I was complaining about something like at the end of 2019, and my friend, I was like, I need to release courses. People don't know what I'm talking about. He's like, there's it's this thing called no code. And I was like, people use that term? Like, what in the world? So he's like, you need to start talking to people like what you do, because you've already been doing it. And from there, this really happened. I would always do it behind the scenes and create videos for clients from my startups. And then when COVID hit, a lot of our clients that were in fitness and all these things were shutting down. So I was like, okay, so for 40 nights straight, I'm going to build 3 businesses every single night and just use all these no-code tools. And so up to date, I think I've used, my record is like 573 different platforms. But during that time, it was just like my top 100. And then it went from there, and people were like, yeah, you need to start taking this serious and start showing people. So that's how it happened.
I'm sorry, how many apps are you
573.
573 apps. Wow. Okay. And you're learning new ones all the time. Didn't you just start a new one in TapCart last week?
Yeah. So, and then, and to show people, that was the thing. So I don't like it to be, it's not fake. As if you saw it last week with TapCart, it was literally, I never used it before, but showing people, it's easy. It's just, you got to be willing to fail. It's all right. Take a couple deep breaths. It's not going to work the first time. But yeah, it was just using a platform like TapCart, and that was an awesome platform. And then showing like working with purpose and how could you do it. So yeah, that's what I enjoyed to do.
Doc has this thing where he times himself on building these apps. So you guys got to check him out. He times himself to see how fast he can build these apps in an hour. So it's really cool. Now, so with so much out there, so many different tools out there to be able to build out your idea, build out your startup. Like, what would you guys say is the reason why someone should build something on no code, right? Why should we utilize these different tools to build upon our dream or our goals?
Yeah, happy to take that one. I think so. Let's assume you are non-technical and you want to build a startup, right? So what are the options? And Mariam and Nicolas, they mentioned a couple. One, you need to find a technical co-founder. How high are the chances that the technical co-founder that you meet at a networking event loves your idea, is a cultural fit, and really wants to drop out of their Google job and pursue your idea? Pretty low, right? So the other option that non-technical founders have is essentially, well, pay to play. So in other words, hire someone to build it, right? And or in this case, look for investors to essentially justify for the upfront cost. So I think for non-technical founders, no-code is ideally positioned because every startup that you're building has a high degree of uncertainty. And all of that, you can't just think it through. You essentially have to test it. So in many instances, it essentially means that you start with no-code to build a first landing page or a first small little application to essentially launch as quickly as possible to your target audience and see, do they like it? Are they willing to pay? Are they using it? Yes or no, right? And I think for anyone that is just like, playing around with a couple of ideas, it's like, that's awesome. Don't don't fall in love with every idea that you have, but let's test out each individual idea, and no-code is perfectly positioned for that.
Absolutely. Now, Mariam, so you've seen, and as you spoke of, just the nuances of being a developer and all these different things is the reason why you put Softer together, right? So with all these different tools, being able to pull them into one place, starting inside of Softer and building this web-based app, would you say is like one of the best starting points to start learning no code in a way?
Well, the gap really we saw in the market was really that some of the existing tools are either too simplistic, you can't really build anything beyond the website, and then on the other hand, they are too complex, or they're still powerful but still complex, and there is huge learning curve. With Softer, we really try to solve that problem and have really an easy to use platform, very intuitive, but at the same time powerful, so that actually someone who doesn't have any technical skills, any technical background, they can immediately jumpstart and really quickly, within 5-10 minutes, have something up and running. So really, it's like having this aha moment that I have a web app up and running already is really important, and we kind of try to have that as a barrier for us. How easy is it to use our building blocks to kind of drag things together, connect them, just put the content, and then you have everything up and running. So I would say yes, for people to also, that's also the feedback we get from our customers regularly, that is really easy for them to start and there is no learning curve. The difficult part is to keep it that way as we move forward.
Yeah, and immediately when I met Mariam and I was introduced to her product, and we utilize Airtable a lot in what we do and how we're building out on our no-code tools, specifically with StartupStarter. So being able to plug and play and then literally connect and integrate your software to your Airtable, and boom, it creates a web-based app for you is very, very useful. And it really helps you cut down the time. Jose, so as co-founders, right, we are non-technical. We came from a sales background and we did not have technical skills. And we've recently actually hired a CTO, but how has this impacted for you? The being able to actually utilize all of these different tools. We use Typeform a lot. We use Airtable a lot. We're implementing software. How has that impacted the stealth in which we have been able to grow so far?
Yeah, it's been huge. For us, no-code has been just incredible. We're able to experiment like a startup and prototype ideas and test them out and see if it works or not, without having to code them into. And that was the issue we had before, when we had to actually develop something, right? Even when, now when you go through that thought process with your developers, you don't have to spend too much time. You can test it out really quick, only test out a little segment of the market if you want, and see if that experiment is correct, if your hypothesis works or not. Being able to move that fast, I don't think that unless your team is just fully staffed with developers, that you can have the same speed as a small business, as a startup, actually, and just go to market and try to different things out and validate that your ideas are correct. That's been huge for us. And then the CTO came into place kind of to bring the mentality of, okay, well, now it's a guy that's trained, that knows, what we're looking for, that can build a scalable product, but even being able to get to the stage that you can have that conversation about, hey, we need to scale something now. Like without no code, I don't know how it would have taken forever, right? Because now like I know what I'm looking for, but I have no idea of how I'm going to build it without things like this. And it started with like a Typeform and an Airtable, and then that alone does so much for you, and you can see how you can kind of get creative. And by the way, with Softer now, I just found out with Mariam, you can actually create really cool like Airtables, like the web that you can use Softer for, and actually embed that. So that's like the next evolution, the next stage of how we're using Airtable, right? For like our CRMs and all the tools and the access we provided, that's how we were able to move. But now being able to make it cool, it's a whole different thing. So yeah, FYI, keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then, I mean, just going right into that, Nicolas, so like just connecting all the dots, right? So Typeform helps you connect the dots and being more friendly about how you go about interacting with your customers, and integrating with really cool products, so that you not only can they be better, but it also helps you guys transform as well. So tell me a little bit about how and why people should be utilizing these type of products with building their idea.
Well, there's a mix of different things with Typeform, but if you remember the old form way, it's really an ugly one-page thing where all the information we want to collect about you are here. Please fill it up, and we don't tell you how much time he's going to need, and we don't really make it nice. We just say, just fill it up, and first name, last name, all the stuff. And so we come with the idea that this whole thing should be a conversation, should be more a way to connect, an opportunity to connect between the brand and the customers. Instead of having first name, last name, it's more like, hey, how'd you like to be called? Hey, Nico, what is your email address? And so we give you all the tools to make this personalized experience. If you had to ask a developer before, that would have been a bit harder to build. But now we help you making this thing personal, and we also help you contextualize it. And I think this is where it gets interesting on the way it connects with other tools, is if you already have some details about this user, like you already know their name, you already know what they have ordered, if they want to do like a return form, this type of things, well, you can contextualize it by passing this data in the URL. And so you don't have to ask the question twice. Because this is also an annoying thing when you fill up a form. I was like, they're asking me about data points that they already know about me. Why should I do this? And so we're giving you the tools to make every interaction you do with your customer a meaningful and good experience.
Yeah, and the way that you guys connect with everything that people are using is great. So like even with us, we create a user experience where we utilize onboarding into our company with Typeform, and then we connect it with Airtable, then we can connect it with Softer, right? And then we can do a Zapier to get the additional data or information that we need. So this is great. So what are some of the tools, and Doc, if you want to jump in, please feel free on that question. But what are some things that you can and cannot build on no code? Like, what are some of those limitations that you guys find people facing when it comes to no code?
Okay, so this is like a trap question right here, and the reason I bring that up is everything you do is going to have limitations. If you code it or not, like there's going to be limitations. Something's going to happen. The issue that I find is, for the most part, has the person thought out validating it to a certain point to get to a certain level, right? So yes, first of all, let's just the question in the room. Yeah, no code has limitations. I have limitations as a person too. Like there's tons of things that have limitations, but what's the goal of what you're trying to do? And what I find is a lot of times people will say, hey, I'm looking to do something like, I want to create the next social network. I get this all the time. I want to create the next social network. And by the way, I want to have TikTok. I want to do TikTok and Clubhouse and Instagram in like 3 months. I don't know any coding background. I don't have anything, but I want it done. Okay, well, let's just back up for a second. Does your audience want this? Like, why are you trying to build it? And I think that's the issue when a lot of people just try to go for a comparison of like what it can do and what it can't do, instead of asking like what kind of tool are you trying to build and what are you trying to accomplish? Because then there's a lot of other ways to be inventive and imaginary that no code can do to at least validate or become that starting point, and then scaling from there. So I would start with that.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot, like your idea, the company or the product that you're trying to build on, right? Like, do people want it, right? Will people use it, and how are you going to get people to understand what you're actually creating, and give you the feedback that you're looking for? So, anyone else want to answer that question in terms of limitations? And
yeah, happy to go into this. And I think, we train non-technical founders around the world, and we get in many instances, the same questions over and over again, right? So, to Doc's point, I want to build TikTok, Clubhouse, all mixed together, and it needs to be scalable to 50 million people. And hey, I don't want to rebuild stuff. And so can we do it for $200? And you're like, whoa. First of all, there are a lot of assumptions. Second of all, to Doc's point, do people really need it? And then also, how many customers or individuals have you spoken to, right? And I think the questions are usually a little bit not the right questions, but it comes not from from a bad place. It just comes from a place from not really knowing, right? Not really knowing the development process, not really knowing how to validate ideas, right? It's because it's like, if you are starting out in technology and you're trying to build a startup, you're basically seeing, the Facebooks, the Clubhouse, and so on. You're not seeing, the teams behind it. You're not seeing the complexity behind it. You just want to develop, a simple app or a simple particular thing. And I think something that we have to do is like step back and say, okay, the most effective way is to essentially build anything is really to validate, to validate your first assumptions, to talk to your users, to talk to potential customers and see, is there a need that they actually want it? Because in many instances, what we think and what's actually needed are totally two different things, right? And the earlier you can validate that, be it with code or with no code, doesn't really matter. But that's essentially critical. And many founders just skip that step. They're like, hey, I have this idea. It's $1 trillion idea. I know it's going to work. Everyone needs it, and I need to build this and this and this. And that's essentially setting yourself up for failure, right? So it's like, it's a better philosophy when you go about like, hey, let me learn the best tools, in this case, no code tools, to quickly test and iterate ideas. And then 2, let me just like come up with 20 different ideas that I'm not really attached to, but that I'm quickly testing out, and also at the same time talking to individuals, to the audience or to the customer. And when we say talking, not over Twitter or anything, talking on the phone, to understanding their pain points, which, by the way, not many founders do, right? It's like, have you talked to your customers like on the phone or face to face? Not many do that, right? But essentially, like, getting the basics straight helps you to succeed with building whatever technology. And then also, one thing, going back to the question, you can't build a blockchain infrastructure and or basically a very custom AR or VR experience with no code. And this is ultimately, you can, and there are maybe some no code tools that specialize in particular niches, but they have a lot of caveats. But then before even going there, let's first get the basics straight. Do individuals really want it? Are they willing to pay for it? And then how can we create a scenario where we can essentially test those assumptions?
Yeah, that's great. Now, it also, so Jose, so we built StartupStarter on the tools that we actually use ourselves, and we advise companies on the tools that we actually use ourselves to building out these companies. So you're very familiar with some of the limitations that we've had in creating what we've been building. So tell them a little bit about how we've overcome some of those obstacles in building out our infrastructure on no code.
To be honest, we haven't had too many roadblocks. So StartupStarter, we're focused on the business element of things, right? We're not like, I think a lot of product or no-code tools and no-code movement is really focused on product, right? We do have like our product manager, but we're focused on business. Everything we give you is for business, right? And even as we find tools, we're not really concerned in like some really crazy way of going at it. We just want the functionality behind it. And we've always been very lucky that anytime we wanted something that we're like thinking of putting money into something, hiring someone to do something, a particular tool just gets released, right? So Circle.so, which is what we use for our community, allows us to even prototype an entire product. Just we blocked all the community-based stuff, and we just were able to embed, a Typeform in one place and an Airtable in the other, right? And be able to create a CRM with basic tools. And to add to this question, like last week I had an interview, one of our new startups joining us called Accio. They're a no-code tool for AI. About a year ago, I had an AI for private equity consultancy with a friend of mine, and we were tasked by one of the big private equity firms in Europe to help them deal with churn, right? And our going rate was like $400K a month on the cheaper side of things, right? And we're trying to undercut like BCG that was charging $1 million. When they came to us, they had a plug and play tool that was like $35K off the shelf. And I'm okay, like honestly, like I think we can use that to validate because you guys have an idea that you guys think we can solve. And I think it's a very good experiment. But $35K as a business, I think that for like a quick month, you can try this out. The tool that I talked to last week, $150 a month, right? And you can just test that out. So just so you can see how fast things come into play. For us, we've been lucky enough that like really quickly we can find these things and play with them. And then when it comes to like limitations, I think it's more like cosmetic. Like, can we make it, which software really helps with that, right? Can we make it really stand out? Can we make it really something you can play with? But yeah, I have no complaints from that perspective. So, but again, for us, it's more business than like product side.
Anyone else want to add anything to that, Mariam or Nick? Good. All right.
I had a follow up, but Mariam on she's ready to go. I don't want to talk over her. Mariam,
No, go ahead, Doug.
I was just gonna say too. I see a lot of times it's really big right now. We're doing a whole breakdown of crypto and everything this week, right? Because one of the questions was a founder asked us, so I was like, can you make crypto? Can you do blockchain with no code? And it took a while, but we figured out how to do it. And it's not us, it was someone else. And we were talking about how to do it. But then we talked to an expert in crypto and they backed up and they're like, yeah, you could do it that way. But they're like, there's 1,000 other, like, why would you haven't even validated anyone wants it on a popular one. Why do you need to mint and do all these things as an NFT and then crypto? And so they talked to the founder. They're like, do you have anyone that wants any of your stuff? And the founder was like, no. They're like, then you need to go and do X, Y, and Z. Like, it doesn't matter that you now have this system and can mint. It sounds great. It's great at a party, but like, what is that going to do for your business? And then it really helped them see all the steps they need to do first. So that's what I love about no code. It can, when you're ready to hit the ground and to validate, it's there. But I think it's like almost like the 80-20, 80% of really thinking about that great idea, having everything in line, or at least that concept, and then go finding those tools to really get you to the starting line and go from there.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. All right. So I have a question that I have been seeing lately on Twitter, right? So when it comes to not necessarily even just no code, but when it comes to your brand or your domain, right? So are you actually going to buy the domain before you get going, or are you going to wait to and build out the product and then buy the domain? Who wants to say?
I mean, again, right? There's a high degree of uncertainty if your idea works. I have like a list of domain names that I own, probably like 30, 40, and it's like, an idea that you had that you start, but then you're like, it doesn't work, and you move on. I think the best point here is to be very highly experimental. You can change your name, you can change the domain, you can change your logo. It's not set in stone. And the fact that you will, like, okay, one example is, one of my first startups, I spent pretty much almost 2 months designing a logo. And I surrounded myself with people who are highly critical. Well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? If you print it on a t-shirt versus printing on this. And it's like a lot of nonsense. It's like, no. It's like good enough is good enough, right? And just move fast. And then more importantly, validate with users, right? So I think it's like you can always change, you can always, rename, you can always do. It's like just be, especially when you think about startups, just be very experimental. Nothing is set in stone, and you're just like experiencing life and testing ideas out. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
The fun part, Eddy. Maybe just to add there, the fun part, I'm not going to get into that discussion, but the fun part is maybe, so we just released today our new pricing model, which allows anyone experiment and have their own custom domain on the free plan. So Eddy, you can just go ahead and
even better.
Recharge your old custom domains. So I think, that's also one thing that we definitely wanted to kind of empower more people to just not even have that hurdle going additional step of buying anything to have their custom domain to test out something. So I think it's just things are becoming more and more easier. It's just for people to really validate, talk to customers, understand if there is a need, and buying a domain, making a logo, etc. Those are kind of the last step things, right?
Yeah, I think one point, it's like we have companies such as Software, Webflow, Bubble, and all of it that essentially empower you to do whatever you want to build, right? And it's like the tools are here now. Now non-technical individuals can essentially build, but yet in building startups, validating and identifying a business opportunity still remains the hard part. If that wouldn't be the case, every engineer in the world would be a startup founder, which is not the case, right? So it's like there's still like this problem identification and identifying how to solve it. And essentially, is it worth enough that individuals pay for that problem? That still remains the challenging part. No code just allows you to do that. And companies like Software and Typeform and Videoask have tools to get closer to the truth and develop towards that. But the problem of solving a problem where people are willing to pay for it still remains.
Yeah, if the brand is the thing that prevents you to create your project, then you probably have other issues or other things to look at. You never heard about Quickform, I bet, because Quickform was the first name of Typeform, and we went through rebranding early on, and we went through rebranding a bit later. You probably never used Videoask when it was videoask.it. Now it's videoask.com, but we also had to buy the domain that was available back then. It was probably cheaper than trying to get the .com, but now that we proved that it was valid, then we put the budget to buy the .com. Maybe now it makes the .com more expensive because we have a real product with it. But we went through the same thing.
Mm-hmm. We're on stream, and I was talking about someone was trying to think of a name, and in the chat they're like, "What do you think about these names?" And he's just putting in all of his domains, and I was like, "Well, yeah, I like this one." And I was like, "Bro, did you buy these yet?" He's like, "No." I'm like, this is a live show, right? People bought up all of his domain names right there. I was like, listen, I was like, this is a public thing. I'm like, you're on YouTube, you're on Twitch. Like, these people are mercenaries out here. You know what? The person, he's like, oh man, I'll talk to you in 2 months. Didn't start it for 2 months because he didn't have the domain name. I was like, listen, man, it didn't change what you were going to do. It didn't change. It ended up fine. And so I think it's great. I think it's a balancing act. I think it's good to have it, but also, Nicolas, you said it perfectly. If it hinders you to start, then it can just be that hindrance. Like, nah, I'll start it next month. Like, I need the perfect name to get. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
The only place where it matters is probably on all the affiliate type of shops and business you're going to do, where having the good SEO is useful, but that's really a small portion of all the entrepreneurial projects that exist in the world. So I'm sure you can overcome that issue.
Honestly, I think it does matter a bit, just from like a level of commitment, right? Like my friends that are always like thinking around, like, oh, I'm going to do this, like, we just buy it, get started, take the first step. What's the first step, right? If you have an idea, you're saying, oh, I want to start this business, well, just do it, right? Like, just, I think we all know a lot of successful founders and people that have like good companies, but we know way more people that are like, oh man, I have this idea, I should do this, I should do that, right? And to me, it's like, well, then just get started. And I think the easiest step is, it's so easy to launch your business today, man. Like, and I think part one of that realistically is the website. It doesn't have to be the perfect domain, but just knowing you took that step that day and you went and, okay, I'm committed. I'm going to launch that company, and you put it out there. That's a good first step. That's like empowering to a lot of people, right? So from that perspective, I'd say yes, but I'd say don't dwell too much on it. You can change it over time. You can, and to me, it's more like, hey, let me just get a website, I get started. Let me go on Reddit and ask for feedback and say, hey, you guys think this is legitimate? And then go to Indie Hacker, say, yeah, that's legitimate, right? And then throw in some of these tools and be like, hey, that's my product. You think that's cool? But I do think it's like, it's just a good signal of like taking that first step and like testing your own level of commitment. Like, okay, are you going to do it or not? Right? Or otherwise, you can get stuck in the planning, consulting phase of it for far too long and not really move along. So, yeah.
Cool. So like, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit here. So when it comes to building a startup on no code, do you guys feel that a startup using no-code tools to build out their company are being recognized more today, of course, than they were before, in the space of even investment, right? Are they being more recognized now when it comes to investors? And I think, Mariam, you could really speak to this as creating a no-code tool, right? And within that, creating that tool, you've also raised. So maybe I'll go ahead and let you start with that question.
Yeah, sure. So we have actually 1 year ago, we have talked to some investors who didn't believe that you can build an app without knowing how to code. They just didn't believe. And then this year, we just see more and more companies. We have seen recently in the no-code space, companies that have raised also money using no-code tools, right? We ourselves have a client who is just to raise funding, and they have built their entire platform on software. And of course, it's still, there is still lots of questions around that, but I think it's getting easier for sure. And there are definitely lots of investors wanting to see the tech build in-house, which to me is a bit, yeah, at this age, at this kind of world, it doesn't matter. And what really like good investors care is traction, is seeing that you have built something that people are ready to buy and pay you for. And once you have that, once you can validate an idea, once you can demonstrate that you have a product that is running, you have good customer base, etc., that is what really will attract investors. So I wouldn't really worry about that too much. And I mean, let's be honest, how many of the top known companies are tech companies, where tech is the core, right? Like, is Facebook a tech company? Is Airbnb a tech company? They're not. They just have a platform where people are using and running a business on, but it's a business company. It's not tech. So that's where I see really most of the companies, like 70% probably of all the companies they don't have tech at their core. So definitely be possible to start with no code for sure.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like, no one needs to know what you're running on. It's not in their face all the time. It's like, this is how my backend is made. No one knows what database I'm using when I'm coding my own app. And they don't need to know this for all the no-code tools either. So as the product is growing, as the people are using it, that's what really matters. And when the investor come, as you said, eventually there's a tech that's like you own and your proprietary one that you connect with the rest of the tool. But I don't think that really matters early on.
If you look at what happened with the Hustle and Trends that got acquired by HubSpot, what was that run on? That was a Facebook group and a WordPress site. And they got acquired by HubSpot. Okay, so, and that's just one example, but it really depends on exactly, Mariam was talking about that traction and what you're going to be delivering. Even with our other ones that we've been at, the other startups I've been at, some of the founders, because they asked, and then you tell them they like have no idea what those even mean. And like, oh, we built the X, Y, and Z. And yes, quiet. And it didn't do anything. So for the most part, they were looking at the numbers, all of those things. And I really think it's just positioning and making sure that's valuable and then going from there.
Yeah, and I think from our perspective, and we're well integrated with, the venture funding here in the LA area. And I think one is the function of educating and essentially allowing individuals or VCs to better understand how to essentially what it basically means to build a startup in the no-code stack. And I think the conversations that we had so far, it's like, hey, if founders can validate for the fraction of the time and money with no code, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, hey, we're not sinking tens of thousands of dollars into a dead product that might not makes it. So many no code platforms, they run for like $50 to $100 a month. And essentially allow you to be flexible, to do a lot of testing. And then if you essentially share that with VCs, their support for what after we explained it to VCs, they've been very favorable towards that approach.
And also, let's be honest, once you reach to a specific point in a startup, like once you reach Series A stage, most of the companies are rebuilding their entire platform. Exactly. So it can then at that point, it would make sense when there is a really, when it does make sense, then you could anyway transition to your full stack team.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's totally justified, right? Because you identified a feature set that is needed and that's also used. You have, in this case, the specific instructions of how the user flow is that you essentially can fully, build out and code for scalability and for further modifications, right? But this this long valley of uncertainty has been discovered with no code. And now it's like, okay, now we can essentially put engineering time towards something that we've validated and that is currently being used.
Yeah. Listen, when you're building out something of a large scale, right? You're building out the idea at all different angles, whether you're using no code or not, right? And I kind of want to go back to something that Nicolas brought up, and you don't need to know what I'm using necessarily, right? So I kind of want to have you guys talk to me about how important it is to utilize products that you have the ability to white label. And if somebody can tell us real quick, just for those people out there that do not know what white labeling is, what is that? And then, how is that being utilized and when should you utilize that?
I can speak about this.
Being able to white label, huge. I think it does help you transition to that next stage where okay, this is good, but I want to be presentable, right? And white label is being able to take somebody's product and basically just rename it as yours in a nutshell. And I do, for us, is always keep finding companies that we can do that with, right? So I think Airtable always puts their logo everywhere, but Typeform allows you to, hey, the next stage of Typeform, I can actually take that off and I can play with it and customize it fully as I want. I think that's big. Okay, if you want to just be a business that be more presentable, more button up, I think that really helps. I think on functionality, it doesn't really matter, but it's just more hey, I want to show that this is actually, my business, that I care, that is presented, that the UX, the UI matters to me, and that I'm looking out for you as well. So it's just from a purely cosmetic standpoint, but I'm huge on brand. So for me, it's it has to look pretty and it has to be able to be my thing. Not sure how you guys feel about it, but that's my thought.
Yeah, I think as long as it solves the pain point of the user and white labeling is an option towards, solving that, that's totally fine. If you are saying, hey, my whole business purpose is to take technology, white label it and resell it and so on, that's a totally different approach, that you need to be aware of, something that we don't recommend, but, we've seen people do that just to essentially, white label and resell things.
Yeah, now this is a big thing. If anyone comes from a lifetime deal or anything with AppSumo, people if I could take a shot every time I see something in the comments, everyone's like, is this white labeled? Am I getting this for $150 lifetime and it's white label? I'm like, my God, you haven't even used it yet. But it's good, but to the point of, is it necessary? Or you from cosmetic, if it makes everything streamlined, that's great, more power to you. But if it's just validating in what's going on from there, I don't think it's necessary all the time. So again, it depends on if I'm really heavy onto, I'll give you an example. We work with influencers, and a lot of influencers want theirs white labeled because they're associating themselves with that product or service. And that's from their customers. They don't want anything except themselves. makes total sense with an influencer and things like that. Different than maybe if I'm thinking about an indie maker that's just trying it out with his audience less than 10 to 15. So I really think it depends on out the gate, the audience and everything, and that association with the product or tool.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Any final words on that?
There's probably a tolerance, as you said, a tolerance on your audience. If you're just starting and you post it on Product Hunt, I think people will tolerate that it has the logos of all the different products you use, because this is the community that's happy with it. If you start posting it in other places and you try to present yourself as a legitimate business, people will question that and will be like, who are those logos? In the end, you just glue stuff together. You're not a legit entrepreneur. But as and then Mariam could probably have a thought on this, on how it works for software. But this is a common request we received from Typeform and Videoask. We put this on a paying plan, saying that once you really need to show that you're a legitimate brand, we'll give you all the tools to look like one. But yeah, people do that all the time. And the other thing that's interesting also on the customer-facing stuff is the embed possibility. Whereas, like, if you give the Typeform, it's still a Typeform URL, but if you embed it on your website, no one knows it's a Typeform. And there are some tools where you don't need to have this custom URL.
Did you want to add something, Mariam, now?
Well, in our case, on the free plan, it's definitely branded with software name, which is understandable. But then on all the paid plans, people are able to put their logo and all of the customize everything they want, because otherwise it wouldn't even work in our case, right? People are building their own product, they are building their platform, and they want to have their own users. So our platform kind of acts as an intermediary. And people just pay us for subscription price. So I think, I have seen some platforms also even not changing the branding even on the paid version. I guess it depends on the audience who they are targeting, especially for, as mentioned before, for legitimate businesses, they do want to have their own branding.
Cool. So one of the things that I've been looking at in terms of just when you're building out your brand, you're building out your company, what are some of the misconceptions that you guys find that people have when it comes to no-code tools?
Misconceptions. I would say a couple things is, well, first of all, no-code's still so new for the most part. So it kind of depends on where they're hearing it from. I find that it depends on the entry. So sometimes it's very different than if I, like, say, for instance, my father or other developers, I'm like, yeah, I do this with no code. And my dad's a dev. And my mom's like, yeah, he does what you do. And he's like, no, he doesn't. No, he does not do what I do. Right. So a lot of times when it's coming from different directions, that's very different than, say, for instance, if an artist, I find a lot of times when artists or other makers come in, a lot of times they don't even use no code. They use things like batching. Sometimes they don't even use the word automation, which is interesting to me. So I think it just depends on where they're coming from, and then they have their own misconceptions. Like artists, a lot of times that I work with, they think it's too hard and it's going to be too technical, right? The other side of the developers are like, this isn't real things. I can do it myself. This is trash. It's too limiting, and I'm generalizing, but you see how it kind of just depends on where their starting point is. And then from there, and then their no code, it comes back to that word. What does it mean to you? No code, low code, and then you go off into a totally different direction. So hopefully that doesn't skew the conversation too much, but I think it really depends on the person, where they're entering and how they're coming in contact with it.
Yeah, I think from our side is, and this is just like a very general misconception of, one-hit wonders. If you want to be a startup or, a founder, it's just a one-hit wonder. You got this idea, walking at the beach. This is the idea. Jesus just handed it over right into your brain, injected it right into it. And you're like, this is it. Right. And it's actually not true at all. I mean, it's like in many instances, it's all about testing and iterating. And, with no code, having the tools to essentially do that. Right. And I think many also put too much on their own, or essentially too much weight on themselves. When they explore no code, they're like, oh, I have this idea, but this tool doesn't work because my idea is this, and essentially start judging, or in another sense, start worshipping tools, where they build a community around one tool and says this tool does everything, and then only think, and then essentially see problems through that tool. Instead of becoming problem focused, of identifying problems and figuring what tools essentially allow me to solve it, there's getting fixated on this tool, and every feature that is being released is in this case, a new business opportunity that we can do, which is a wrong way of thinking. So this is kind of like, the tool misconception, and then also the founder misconception.
I guess one big misconception is as well that lots of people believe that no code is the end of the code. It's just bringing the end to the code, but which as being an engineer, I don't believe that's going to happen at least anytime soon. Just because, first of all, you need engineers and coding to build all of these tools. But second, as well, you just, at some point, once you start your business, if you talk especially about entrepreneurs, at some point you're gonna need to transition to in-house build tools. Like once you grow, once you hit, I don't know, hopefully thousands or millions of users, etc. And also in the companies, there is so many use cases that it does require integrations with lots of different and other tools that definitely code is going to be there. And no code is like, to me, no code is just an enabler and empowers a lot more people to get into tech, to build tech products and become builders instead of just being users. And it helps so many people to kind of just start building businesses. But also on the other hand, inside companies, until recently, like people would entirely rely on engineers, right, to build anything in other departments, or most of the time to not build because engineers don't have time other than the core product. And right now that is becoming possible. And most companies are really becoming more agile, more like owning their parts of the product and just, moving much faster.
Yeah, I'll say to add to all this, I'll say there's no magic, right? The same way that you were not learning coding in one day, you're not going to learn coding in one day, and you need some involvement. There's a learning curve to learn a specific tool. There's a learning curve to learn all the stacks. So don't expect it to have it work on the first day. The good thing I'll say, compared to the reason why as an engineer I choose some of the no-code stack for my project is it works on my frustration. Right? You don't have to set up all the crazy things, and at the end of the day, you just set up your domain with a basic landing page. And I've done all the different frameworks. That's usually what I do as a developer. So at the end of the day, my frustration is like, I had spent that much time and haven't achieved much. The cool thing about the no-code project is you work on your frustration and you're able to ship more things quickly.
Yeah, I mean, being able to do things quickly is very important. I think that's the biggest thing when you're starting a brand and you're building up a company. One of the questions I had for you guys is, do you guys find that a lot of times we have startups, right, or new idea makers who are utilizing these no-code tools? Do you think there's going to be a change in the movement to where there's actually tools that are being on no-code being created for those companies that are already established that can now take and embed no-code tools into what they're growing to as well? Does that make sense?
I would go ahead, Eddy.
No, go. I mean, like one thing on a macro scale that we see is that many no-code platform or no-code tools or platforms also enable enterprise and small and medium businesses. I think that's where they can be very effective. Usually when it comes to enterprise, you have a couple of stakeholders. And what I've seen is that, every time new technology is being introduced to a larger organization, there's like a list of, people that need to sign off. Then you have, the IT team in the corner being like kind of mad about, this new tool and so on. So it's like, there are a lot of, dynamics that play into it. However, it is something where no code has a large future. Enterprise SMBs, it happens to be that the startup world, you have individuals just like, hey, this is a new cool tool, let me try it out. They don't have, someone that they need to sign off and so on. They can essentially test it. But I think for SMBs and enterprise, it will be a longer cycle to get more and more adoptions, but it's essentially the areas where we'll see the most impact.
I just wanted to add as well that I actually would argue if even the current no-code tools are just being used by creators and entrepreneurs. I mean, we ourselves have so many small, medium businesses running and building applications on software, just because I would even say those types of companies have a more acute need, and they actually, it solves a pain for them, right? Even though entrepreneurs have an idea, they want to start business, but the established businesses already have a problem. They are moving slow, or they cannot digitize, or they cannot make offerings to their clients. And this actually solves their real problem. And I think this is definitely the more entrepreneur creator side of people. They are very eager to try new tools. They are really easy to jump on different applications, building applications or tools. But what we are seeing is basically the same kind of trend is starting to emerge within the SMBs and enterprise as well. Just having people who become ambassadors and really users of those tools, just kind of creating something. They had a problem with the company, they just start creating something within their organization, solve that, and then that kind of spreads through their team and across that. So that's really the model I mean we love as well, kind of bottom-up approach to have the tools show the value to the company through different people, and then it kind of spreads from there.
I fully agree, and I think especially if anyone from the audience works on a larger organization, having a good understanding of the no-code tools and implementing them into your work, into the day-to-day, essentially makes you like a ninja, because there's so many inefficiencies, left and right, usually in organization SMBs, and no-code tools are perfectly positioned for that. Just to give an example, in my previous life, I used to run the product and innovation center for a larger agency, and our website was, while we were working more on the product and research side, our entire website was like, fully built in custom code. I essentially introduced to them, no code to them, and essentially they rebuilt their entire website over 2 weeks, all in Webflow, ultimately cutting out 4 or 5 people that were usually in between the processes of approving, of changing design, and so on, right? So now, before they had 5 people doing the website, now they have 2 people, right? So it also creates an interesting dynamic within organizations where the amount of work to accomplish certain software tasks is being questioned. And I think no code is a disruptor in that case.
Yeah. And a lot of the companies we take in StartupStarter are actually not startups. I mean, I think most are just given our name, but even our name is just more like a bet that in the future, everything's a startup. Our thesis is every business is an internet business. And I think that's just true at this point. If you're mining, or if you're starting a startup or like a coffee roaster, a lot of the things you're going to have to use are the same across the board. A good website, right? To acquire customers, test out your product, make sure to get feedback fast enough. We customize their experience according to what need they have. So you're like, if you come in as a coffee roaster, which we actually have some in StartupStarter, you can pick like an e-commerce, trail, and actually be able to have a customized e-commerce or only like brick and mortar experience. But being able to have like a Typeform, be able to like automate a lot of these parts when we show them, I think is just, there is like with the startups, you're always finding these tools, you're always looking, you're always involved, you're always seeing this. But going into the mainstream, it's just a matter of being able to reach those people, because once they show it to them, they're like, this is huge, this is easy, and this is like, people that grow up from our age, if you grew up with a cell phone, if you grew up with a computer, you're gonna figure it out really quick, right? And you're going, because for us, it was more like, okay, we're having admissions, we need to find a way to control those admissions. Let's use Typeform, and let's use like some of these things to make sure that we can actually figure that out. When we show them that, it's like, dude, it applies to anyone. It's just a matter of like, okay, what's the next stage? And let's kind of stop thinking about startups, which is a very niche group, and actually let's go into the mainstream. Let's show that, hey, any business, even if you're a restaurant, you can automate a bunch of these things and make your life a lot easier if you get creative with it, especially with like automation and like tools like Zapier and stuff like that. So yeah.
I would even say it's easier for businesses to adopt no code than startups, right? Because usually you have predefined problems that you have already identified, right? So in this case, this is the problem. What are the tools? What are the best tools to essentially solve for that? Versus in startup land of like, hey, I'm still, trying to figure out what I want to do and like what tool sets to do and so on. So I think businesses overall are just like, they have already those problems. They just need better tools to solve them.
Yeah, man, you guys are giving some really good conversation today. Some good nuggets. So I really want to ask, like, so what do you guys see? We'll look at short term. What do you guys see in the movement of no code for 2021 and brands as they're expanding? And kind of just going back to the end of what we were just speaking on before. What's really cool about these enterprise companies is that there are idea makers out there that are creating solutions for enterprise companies. So even if these enterprise companies are not pivoting to these solutions, these idea makers are actually creating solutions to help these larger organizations, enterprise companies build. But again, so what do you guys see going on in 2021? Like, with this movement? It's blowing up because of the world pandemic, right? People utilizing these tools, and a lot of companies like Tapcart, right, really blew up, grew their team during the pandemic. But what do we see moving forward in 2021?
Yeah, I think one obvious thing is just like individuals like Mariam and Nicolas, they're building on better and better tools for the future, right? Essentially to solve for more and more edge cases overall. So I think, it's really good to see that in the next 1, 2, and 3 years, the tools overall just become more solid and have more use cases overall, right? I think one thing that I would love to see is essentially more education, awareness around that, not only in startup land, but also, as we recently discussed in SMBs and organizations. And, to Miriam's earlier point, in many instances, this is like a, bottom-up approach where you essentially have individuals, introducing new tools to an organization.
I think it's going for everything. Oh, sorry. Things going for everything. Like I said, like my example earlier on with the AI tool, like I was so surprised to see someone develop a tool to prevent churn, right? That is going to cost me $50 a month. That is going to identify who my customers are that are leaving. I was like, what? And now everyone's realizing if we just teach people how to use the interface, right, we get more creative. We're able to explore more and more tools. And now, people such as you, Mariam, that can code things and figure out, okay, well, if I give people this tool, they'll be able to do X. So now you got a bunch of people that can figure out other expertises and other things that they do, AI, data science, and and code these types of tools that can now enable more and more people, more and more founders, more and more startups to get started or to fix certain issues. Just like it happens a lot that a lot of the successful startups, they come out to fix like a particular problem in the SaaS world. Nobody hears about it. They raise millions and they can be acquired early on because they find something that a big company has and they're able to fix it, right? So I think with that in mind, now if you can just bring other things that you wouldn't think before, right? Now going to AI, right? And then VR, XR, who knows what's coming. So that's how I feel that it's coming out. It'll just come for everything.
It's actually a really, really interesting point. I also think, or like one hypothesis is like more smaller problems will in the future be solved because you essentially have more people that are essentially able to see those problems and actually do something about them and have the tools to solve them. This basically means that individuals might not have $1 billion, startup, but they might have, $100,000 startup that makes, maybe $100,000 or $200,000 a year and essentially allows them to have a good life by solving one particular niche problem, that they are specialized in, right? And I think we'll see more and more smaller ideas being solved with the tools that we currently have. Doc, I think you were planning to say multiple times something. I tried to cut. I cut you off several times. Please drop your knowledge.
No. And then I saw Mariam unmuting, so I'll go after Mariam. It's not a problem. Not a problem.
It's like Clubhouse already, right? You unmute and someone else comes on mute.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, honestly, I think exactly what you all have been saying. I think it's going to be internal tools this year. A lot of smaller, very specific problems. For example, like I was talking to my wife, and she was talking about these flash games for women. Like, I didn't understand like doll making games. I didn't understand how big the underworld of doll making was, but it was just talking about flash games gone right. And there was now a no-code platform how you make your own doll game. Now, in the entire subreddit, everyone's like, no, you can only use C++. This doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. Someone came out, they worked at another company, a big company for all of these things for doll making, came out, created it themselves. And now all of these users are using this. I was telling her, I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And she's like, this is a really deep problem. Now, what did they have to do? Just use Photoshop with different layers. And now they're creating their own games, their own no-code maker games with PSD files. Like, so I think it's just going to be more and more kind of things like that. And I was thinking another one, there was this guy that I met. He was into fly fishing. Didn't think about it. And he was talking about all of these fly fishing groups are still using these like outdated message boards. They look like GeoCities, all this craziness. And he just brings it and creates a Glide community. So he uses Glide app. Now he makes communities. They're ecstatic. They think this is the best thing in the world. And he made it in like 15 minutes. So I think that's going to be huge. And the last thing I would say is fundamentally teaching ones how to use APIs and just what that's going to do for no code and all these things. I cannot wait for 2021, but they're just the powers of API and Google Cloud Platform, what they allow you to do and what you can integrate. I can't wait for the rest of this year.
I'm going to jump in then. I was actually going to say exactly the same what Eddy said. In the end, more niche community, more niche startups coming out, and really, I believe the long tail of startups is just going to explode, and there's going to be probably 100x more startups. Doesn't necessarily have to be venture-backed startups. And also, what I believe is going to happen is we're going to see probably 10x or 100x more tools, no-code tools, because every day on Product Hunt, it seems that there is a tool launching. We're going to see more power in the existing tools, more VC funding into the tools, but also more VC funding into no-code platforms, like companies which are built on the no-code tools. So in general, I do believe that that space is really growing. There is more and more awareness and interest in the space, and just people just even getting to know that you can build a thing, website and the web app especially, without any code. That is something that that is just happening and is gonna go to kind of mainstream.
I will say, as this is 2021, it's probably going to be about NFT, right? Is that how 2021 is all about?
I think we just minted also a couple NFTs that will be giving away after this. So
This is the buzzword you have to include in all your provision for this year. I think you're all very correct. On the enterprise world, really, this is probably where the money is, and probably where the things to explore is. If you looked at tools like Retool and their usage, like, we don't really hear about them because it's not very sexy to make a connection to an Access database for your own internal use. It doesn't generate as much money as, like, I'm a solo entrepreneur making my own business. But those tools exist. Those tools are empowering other people inside the companies. And as Doc said, I think the education around this, where you can be your own advocate in your own community, that will be interesting. When you were the first person that knew how to make website in your high school, in your village, in your local organization, you were the god that was like making website for everybody. And now you have the power to do this with making mobile apps and educating others as well and passing this knowledge. And certainly you will have more people empowered to build stuff. And on this, I think the good sign was probably what happened to MakerPad as a community space and education space. Curious to see what an acquisition could bring and what visibility they will get through that acquisition.
Yeah. So I have one last question for all of you guys. So what is next for Softer, WeAreNoCode, Brand Factory, Typeform, Videoask, and StartupStarter? Like, what's next for you guys?
Well, as you mentioned, I'll start. So for Softer, we are basically very focused on building out the product, because right now we're just 5% of what we imagine where Softer could be. And basically really building out the product, having a powerful product which can cover a lot more use cases than we do currently, and really expanding from a more creator and entrepreneur communities to a much broader audience, also serving other people within companies where they also have really big needs for these kinds of tools.
On the Typeform front, I can tell you that obviously we're growing the team in the company, and there are more things that are coming. Some of you may have seen a new iteration on the builder side, which means we are bringing more things for you to customize the look and feel of your Typeform. Some stuff that people have been asking for a while, new types of questions, as well as more power for the no-coders, logic thinking people, for everything that's around calculation and logic. Really, like, you can do way more things around this. Plenty of integrations are also in the pipeline. If you want to have your integration built, please let us know. That helps us prioritize this. On the video thing, it's hard to tell you because every week this team is shipping stuff. So whatever I'm saying now is going to be outdated in 3 days because they're shipping so fast. But there's also some work there on a new builder and a new building experience that's going to be more visual in terms of like connecting things together. And you may have seen a test that was called a human chatbot. And if I can tease you, this is like right now, if someone answers to a Videoask, we can't do any logic around this. But what we're adding now is an AI recognition. So we'll know what you want to talk about, and we'll do a different pass in the whole Videoask. So there is one step where what you want to eat, and you say you're going to have a pizza, then you talk to the pizzaiolo. You say you want to have a coffee, you talk to the barista. And we'll give you the tool for this. So analyzing someone's speech directly on Videoask. That's coming.
That's really cool. So are we all getting a beta invite to test and play around with this?
Yes, if you don't have it, please reach out. Come to the chat. I think it's already in the product, so you can really have some beta access to it.
That's really cool. Yeah, on the WeAreNoCode front, so I think over the past months, we've really doubled down on non-technical founders and essentially empowering them to become an entrepreneur and a founder of the future, how we call them, where they essentially have the best tools and also the best knowledge when it comes to identifying problems and doing something about this. I think overall, no code is still very language specific, so you need to know English. And usually we see more higher concentrations in the US, UK, and Australia. We would love to see more builders and more entrepreneurs and in different languages that emerge and essentially identify problems around the globe and essentially empower those non-technical founders to solve more problems and solve them better than before.
And with Brand Factory, what we're going to be doing is really this year, we're focusing on solving problems, but expanding what we can be doing with APIs and understanding basically conceptual workaround with no code. So this might seem kind of like too much, but we're actually working on fundamentals based on DaVinci. So we're going to be looking at more modeling for aspects of mockups, going into engineering, and then going into automation and understanding how to use that and then utilize it. So we're going to be focusing a lot with APIs for the first 6 months and really going deep to teach non-technical founders how to utilize APIs and to create them based around conversations. So learning how conversations work and then building out APIs like that. And the other thing that we're doing is we're going to have a focus on building shells. And what I mean by that is there's so many times when people are trying to do tech stacks of, okay, what am I going to use for this form builder, then this sign up, then this. It's going to be prefab, almost like modular homes, but we have shells like that for creators. So, okay, you want to do this? Here's your shell. Let's go. And I'm really excited about that. So that's what we're going to be doing to empower it. And then with those shells, now you can create micro SaaS or even nano SaaS, like say, for instance, Chrome extensions and things like that. So excited.
Cool. For StartupStarter, two main things in the pipeline. Now we're working on being able to release product bundles, so you can choose a specific track. So as I mentioned, we have guys that are like coffee roasters that are coming to us, right? Because like so much of the business just starts with the website and these basic key elements, but letting them be able to choose exactly what they need and be able to come in and have a specific experience within us, because not everyone needs to fundraise. Not everyone has to talk to investors, needs to have these things, but some things that they do have to work for everyone, right? So if you think of like what the pitch deck is, it's just the evolution of the business plan because it's faster, right? More straight to the point. That thing applies to anyone. But being able to speak to an investor in AI is not something everyone needs. So we're really trying to hone in on the experience, make it specific, make it that we don't let anyone out. Following that, we're actually bringing our team in Colombia to be able to serve the Latin American market. Same concept. I mean, for the US market, this is very like, oh yeah, this is like the natural evolution of things. It just makes sense. For emerging markets, it's like, oh wow, this is insane, right? So we're trying to really help those people out and get started. I think we're very mission driven, and even for the US, just believe that one of the best ways to get out, to get upward mobility, to bring more opportunity to your family to you is through a business, right? The country is just fixed to be a business country. Being able to do that to other economies that before had no development because they didn't have the money. Now everyone has a computer. It's fairly easy to get started, right? So if we can bring that there and then also to Europe, we're very happy. We still have a long road to go. Like what we want to do is like, we saw the Andreessen Horowitz top 100 marketplace, and nothing in there says entrepreneurship. Everything is just like, okay, education at best or hiring, right? But nobody takes it as a whole. So that's our goal. Can we make it, right? In doing so, democratizing it, can we put it on that list of like, hey, that's the place you want to go to kind of get started and learn all these things and all these beautiful people that are here that are helping us out. So yeah, that's the future for us.
Wow. Listen, you guys have been great. Like you guys have been very informative. All that you guys are doing, everything just came together. And listen, if you're out there listening, this is just an example of what you're going to experience from each one of these individuals throughout the rest of No Code Week. This is week 2 of No Code Week. So stay tuned. We have more to come. Mariam, Eddy, Doc, Nicolas, myself, Jose, thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate all of your knowledge and all of your expertise that you guys have given here. Don't forget, join us live on Clubhouse if you have an iPhone, unfortunately. Join us on Clubhouse where we will continue this conversation. We'll be able to bring some people up to ask some questions and engage. So look out for that. We'll have an additional reminding invite out to you guys shortly. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. Any last words? Anything at all? Nope. Good. Well, listen. Enjoy. Have a great rest of the day. I'll talk to some of you guys on Clubhouse here in a minute. Good.
Bye, guys.
Wow. Such an amazing group of people. So from here, don't forget, let's continue the conversation. We will go to Clubhouse. We'll make it bigger so that you guys can be able to interact with some of these people as well. What I also want to tell you is make sure that you go sign up for a StartupStarter.co profile. It is a free profile right now, and you can actually get promotions and perks directly from these individual companies for being a part of StartupStarter. So don't forget to get your free membership. Check out the deals section and explore out and let us know what you think about StartupStarter.co. Again, we want to thank all of our supporters. We want to thank all of our sponsors for this event. Tapcart.xyz, Beam Conversing, Parlay Me, as well as Videoask for sponsoring this actual panel that we had today. So looking forward to the next steps. Again, check out what's going on for the week. Tomorrow, we have a great day. We are going to have Typeform back to actually do a networking session for you, as well as a workshop. We'll have StartupStarter. You'll hear our story live as well, and our founder story. And then Doc, he'll build out some product tomorrow as well. So looking forward to it, and we'll see you soon. Don't forget to join us on Clubhouse. Bye-bye.
stronger relationship with my customers means better business, but it's hard with just email and a website to have a human connection. So that's why I want to show you Videoask. Videoask is a new way to engage with people through interactive video conversations, like this one. You just record yourself like I did, then you share it as a link or embed it on your website. People can respond with video or audio, or you can give them options to choose from. For example, hi there, nice to meet you. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Tim.
Awesome. Now I can follow up with another pre-recorded question. What's your role?
I'm a product marketer. I'm a product marketer.
When someone answers, their response goes straight to the Videoask inbox. And the audio is transcribed so you can search for it later.
I'm a product marketer.
And when I want to carry on the conversation, I can easily reply with a Videoask.
Hi, Tim. You can also start a follow-up Videoask with any of your respondents and keep the conversation going asynchronously.
You can use it to qualify leads, collect testimonials, for recruitment, and much more.
So that's Videoask. Want to try it out?